Hello. Geographical and economic factors meant I couldn't attend in person this year, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to present this work virtually. So first I'll just confirm that I have no relevant disclosures to make in regard to this research. Now, in recent years, it's become more clear that we should be including more of the world in our neuroimaging research. And there's perhaps many reasons why we might want to do this, but I'll just highlight one, which is the idea that including more of the world would help us improve our science. So for example, if we want to be studying the human brain, we probably want to study the brain in all the different environmental contexts that it is busy working in. At the same time, if we can bring in new scientists with different experiences and different perspectives, there's the potential for us to come to new and exciting insights about how the brain works. But as we move to bring in more people from around the world to neuroimaging, we run up against the fact that the economic conditions differ greatly depending upon where you are on the planet. And our economic conditions have a huge impact in almost every aspect of our lives. So it follows that they might also influence the type of neuroimaging research that people are able to do. Now, common sense might tell us that, yeah, it probably does, but as scientists, it's our job to take common sense and to test it. So that's what I tried to do by getting publications, neuroimaging publications from a set of 14 journals produced in the past decade or so. And these journals were a mixture of neuroimaging specific journals and more general neuroscience ones. And I tried to choose journals that span the perceived prestige range to try and avoid bias arising from that factor. And from these articles, I obtained the titles, the abstracts, and the keywords. So from that data, I then tried to extract the type of neuroimaging modality that was used in a particular article, along with the affiliation of the senior author. And I used that as a proxy for the location where the research was conducted. From an initial data set of around 100,000 articles, I was able to get the modality and location information for just under half, giving a final data set of around 44,000 that the subsequent analysis was conducted on. At the same time, I got some economic metrics at the country level from the World Bank, specifically GDP per capita and national research and development spending. So when we just look at the distribution of where publications are coming from, we can see that neuroimaging research is dominated by North America and by Europe. So on the map here, we can see all the countries from which articles originated, shaded in, and the colours represent the number of articles coming from a particular country. And that's shown on a log scale going from 1 for some countries up to the maximum of around 15,000 from the United States. This dominance of Europe and North America is even more stark when we group the publications into a set of rough geographical regions. We can see here that the number of publications originating from either Europe or North America alone would outweigh the neuroimaging publications from the rest of the world combined. So still plenty of room for improvement in terms of our geographical distribution. I then looked at the specific modalities that were being used in different regions and the proportion of articles that featured these modalities. So I looked at MRI, EEG, different types of transcranial stimulation, MEG, radioligand-based imaging, and intracortical recordings, shown here in this chart. And from this, we can see that a general dominance of MRI research, but we can also see that there's some regional differences in the proportions of articles. So for example, in South America, we see relatively high amounts of EEG and transcranial stimulation research, and lower amounts of MRI research. On the other hand, in North America, we have relatively high amounts of MRI being done and relatively lower amounts of these different modalities. And this regional difference is confirmed by a Poisson regression demonstrating an interaction between modality and region. Looking at the economic conditions within a country, we can see that the more financial resources that are available within a country tends to be correlated with more neuroimaging research being done. And in particular, it seems to be the amount of money that is dedicated to research and development that is the best predictor of the amount of research being done, rather than just the raw affluence of a country, you might say. We can then look at these different modalities and see whether the relative proportion of research that's being done within a country for each of these modalities is related to that country's availability of financial resources for research. So here we have the proportions of articles for each modality plotted against the national R&D spending. And from that we can see that there's a tendency for countries with more financial resources to be doing relatively more in the way of MRI research, shown in blue here. On the other hand, countries that have fewer financial resources available seem to be doing more in the way of EEG research, shown here in the green line. The influences on the remaining modalities are less clear, potentially due to the relatively small amount of research being done with these different modalities. So what this shows is that indeed the type of neuroimaging that people are doing seems to be related to the financial resources that are available to them in their country. So we can conclude that the type of neuroimaging research that people are doing does indeed appear to be influenced by their local material conditions. People who have more financial resources available appear to be doing more in the way of research that requires large amounts of capital to get started with, MRI. On the other hand, people in countries with fewer resources available seem to be doing more in the way of lower capital intensive research using EEG. So this information might be relevant to people who are planning initiatives that aim to increase global participation in neuroimaging, and in particular initiatives that aim to do more neuroimaging research in different countries. We might want to take into account the local conditions in terms of what imaging modalities people might be familiar with, or the types of imaging modalities that are financially viable for people in specific countries. Okay, thanks for your attention, and I'll just quickly say that this research is up as a preprint. I'd be really interested to hear feedback. You can tell me how to improve things. I'd also like to highlight my PhD student, Jiming, who's giving a talk at the Modeling and Analysis Connectivity session, looking at interneurons and their relationship to MEG signals. I think he's doing great work, so maybe go along to that. And I'll thank the Taiwan National Science and Technology Council for supporting my research. Thank you.